Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm happy to have you. So my pre-listening subscribers, welcome back to the channel. So for today's video in particular, we're going to be asking the question, will the White House or Congress be destroyed? Now that could be talking about something more literal speaking. It could be something talking about more spiritual and metaphysically speaking. We'll talk about that in today's video. Now I'm not sure if you guys are going to be notified of this video even being posted or live, particularly because I did schedule this video back in I think September 17, 2021. But this video is being recorded on none other today, on Thursday, February the 12th at 8:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the year is 2026. So we are about 5 years late from this live stream. But anyway, thank you for all you guys who are joining me. And so I just want to show you a little bit of proof. You can kind of see here that you can see that I actually had this already pre-scheduled. You can kind of see it's listed in this corner as September 17th, 2021. Let me just see if I can lower the image so you can kind of see what exactly is coming. So you can kind of see here a lot of my live streams that I do on the channel. I actually have it already pre-recorded and kind of like scheduled in advance. And so today I just figured, why not do this? And anyway, if you want to help out the channel grow, you can do so by liking, commenting, subscribing, hitting the bell icon, engaging with the content, sharing this video with others really helps boost the algorithm here on this YouTube channel. And if you want to stay in the loop and be notified when I do post and upload, just go to the comments or the description, follow my Blue Sky account and my Facebook group, and you'll be notified when I do post and upload next. Alright guys, let's go ahead, let's begin. We have a lot to get through in today's video, but part of the reason why, if you've been with me on the channel for a while, you might be familiarized with the idea that I told you that the United States, when you look at it from a different perspective, a lot of things that Donald Trump does is he is a shadow president. He represents all the things that has happened in the United States that every president has done, whether it's for good or for bad. And look at all the things that's been happening recently over the past 10 years since Donald Trump's been in politics. There's been a clear replication of entire U.S. history, more so than anything in 2025 and 2026. If you don't believe me, look at the Native Americans just doing the walk from across the country. You want to know the last time that happened? The Trail of Tears under Andrew Jackson. So again, it tells you that a lot of things in the U.S. history is repeating. And so none today is we're going to talk about the White House or Congress being destroyed, because in 1814, when the U.S. and the British were back at war again, the British stormed down to the White House and burned it down. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the historical significance of this. This isn't a psychic prediction, but this is a clear pattern recognition. If you recognize the pattern early, you can see what could possibly be coming down the pipe. So let's go ahead. Let's take a look at it. Let's see what Spirit says. Now, this could be metaphorically. It could be physical. Let's go. The Spirit angels tell me, will the White House or Congress be destroyed, just like it was in 1814? Whether are you talking about physical? Let's talk about the physical aspect of this. Then we can always talk about everything else later. Will the White House or Congress be destroyed? Show me a White House or a Congress or something like that. Will it be on fire? Okay, so we have here, we have the knives of coins. The knives of coins means risk. I'm getting the word policy, foreign policy in particular. So the presidency, the White House, and the Congress, depending on what kind of policy they put forth, could expose and levitate the plausibility and possibility of the White House or Congress being destroyed via a fire event or an attack on the Capitol in some capacity. This is known as the knives of coin. You're putting all your coins hoping that the benefit pay off, but more than not, when you start doing poker, you start doing blackjack, and you start playing in casinos, there's a high risk. You might gain a lot, but you also lose a lot. This is the knives of coin. It's also followed by the Gemini card in reverse. This means, being in unison, being the person who is an ally, who, protecting other people. This is the Gemini card. The fact that the card in Gemini is reversed is very significant. It's symbolic, if you're anything. The reason why it's symbolic is pretty informative in itself. It's symbolic on the simple fact that when something like this occurs, especially Gemini, and it's also in reverse, it indicates that there's a sense of disconnection. So if the U.S. policy and just say the U.S. is taking a big gamble, a big risk, maybe possibly going against its own allies, could open itself up to possible domestic terrorist attack or a foreign entity entering in and doing an attack on the U.S. Capitol, or even better yet, Congress or the White House. That's why the Gemini card is reversed. It's not saying it's ruled out. It's saying that the way that it happened, well, it has to happen that the U.S. had to take a policy risk, whether that is domestic policy or foreign policy, and in the end, it could end up in a situation where it could actually end up being destroyed. And this is the physical aspect that we're referring to. Now, this is the age of Aquarius, and that's the age that we're in right now. It's the Aquarius card. Now, what's interesting is the fact that the Aquarian card falls reversed. The reason why this is significant because this means the people, the people's house. Now, the White House is symbolic because it is the people's house. That's what it was known as. But the question you have to ask yourself is, did the White House ever live up to its potential? Did it ever operate under the pretenses of we the people? And the answer is more likely no, it did not. And the same thing goes for the Capitol. I mean, everybody already knows, whether it's the Senate or the Congress, it's already aware that it does not operate on the pretense of we the people. The bottom of the deck here is followed by the Five of Swords here. The Five of Swords means an attack. Now, if you notice here, you have a lot of people who aren't exactly, quote unquote, part of the military. They aren't exactly in defense mode. This means that there is a coup or a foreign domestic entity or enemy within the United States that would do this. It wouldn't be done by a foreign country, but it's foreign in the aspect that it's not supposed to happen. But the fact that it's there is very noticeable. So this is like more like symbolic, if you know what it means. And the Five of Swords could be symbolic. It doesn't have to be something that's physically burning to the ground, but essentially rooting the structures and the institution and hollowing out completely. Now, this could be referring to a constitutional coup. It could be also referring to the insurrection. But if anything, more than anything that we're asking right now, we're asking the question, will it happen in the future? And the question is down the bottom of the deck is the Five of Swords. It means that in order for something like this to occur, it will happen on domestic soil. It will be caused directly by domestic interference, not by foreign interference. So now we are aware that if there was ever an attack on the White House or Congress, it wouldn't be something that would be external, it would be internal. And that's why it falls underneath the Aquarius card, because you have to ask yourself, did the White House or Congress ever align themselves with we the people and the message and live up to that potential? No. That's why the Aquarius card is reversed and is being amplified and clarified by the Five of Swords. Now, what's also clarifying the Five of Swords here? Well, we have the Knight of Cups reversed. This is media. This is entertainment. This tells me that in the future where this occurs, and I'm not exactly sure if we're going to be heading down this timeline, but if we know anything about history and the things that's happening now, and there's a clear replica, a side-by-side similarity from the U.S. history, it wouldn't be in any capacity implausible for something like this to happen. It is the Knight of Cups reversed. It means that on entertainment, it means that when people get bored, they expose themselves to more radical ideas. That's what it's literally saying. That is why the Five of Swords is here on the bottom and it's being clarified by the Knight of Cups reversed. It's when people are bored, they become more radicalized. They're tuned into the news and they turn into the area that agrees with them, makes them agree with certain things, and make them think a certain way, make them feel manipulated. On top of the deck as well, we also have the Charity card in reverse. So this will not be an anonymous group. This is a group that's already well known now. So we are aware of this group. Whether it is means the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, whether it's ICE, whether it's the U.S. government, it doesn't really matter. What comes to it at its core is that the Aquarius card and the Chariot card tells me that this is not anonymous. We are already aware of who this is and who is capable of doing it. So, will the White House and Congress be destroyed on the literal terms? It says, yeah, quite literally, it can be destroyed. It can be burned down. Absolutely. Whether that is something that manifests itself in the physical realm and they actually burn the Congress and the Capitol down, it wouldn't be out of the question. But also, it's talking about something more symbolic, that hollowing it out is considered burning of the institution from within and hollowing it out completely. Out with the old, in with the new type situation. Now, I'm going to drink some water. Let's talk about the metaphysical side. Let's talk about the spiritual aspect of this. I should have told you guys I was going live. I just went live just for the heck of it, because why not? And thank you all of you guys who are with me right now watching. It means a lot. Just keep in mind this video is for entertainment, educational purposes only as well. Alright, so Spiritual Angel, tell me a little bit more about the plausibilities and possibilities of the White House or Congress being destroyed just like in 1814. Tell me a little bit more about that significance. Tell me a little bit more about what we need to know in that regard. And the spiritual significance to it, not the physical, but the spiritual aspect. Tell me more. Okay, so there is going to be an attack. Whether, yeah. Okay, so I'm seeing like images in my head as I'm putting this out. This is the first time I ever got something like this. I'm like looking down at the cards. And I'm seeing like images and videos and pictures, and I'm just seeing it like go. And I'm seeing like so fast, it's like blowing me a little bit. But as I'm looking at the cards and I'm seeing it, because these two cards here represent the White House, this represents the Capitol, and here the connection is the Wheel of Fortune. I'm seeing like the 9/11. I'm seeing that things are more connected than what meets the eye. So when this event occurs in the U.S., and it does look like it's going to manifest in the physical because the people get fed up, is what it feels like. It's going to connect dots that weren't connected prior. There's going to be a connection here. There's going to be a link that's going to be connected. And when we talk about the White House here, we have the Empress card in reverse. We, the people, are not free. Liberty is not just free and for all, right? There is liberty and justice for far and few. That's what the Empress card is reversed what it means. It means liberty does not reign in the White House. And it's being followed by and being amplified by the Six of Swords. It means that, the White House had to move, it had to pivot, it had to go through some changes. It went through a troubled period. And that troubled period was 1814. Right? And it's interesting because this card represents, this section represents the U.S. Capitol, which means the U.S. Capitol is the next one to be attacked. Whether that is physical or not, there is going to be an attack of some sort. And here you have is the Nine of Swords reversed. And the Nine of Swords reversed is pretty significant, pretty interesting for me, because the Nine of Swords reversed doesn't mean that it's upside. It doesn't feel like they weren't aware. It feels like this was planned, like they knew this. Because if this was the case and there were people in position of power, they would be upset. They would be upset that this happened. But instead, this feels more like a cover. This feels like more like a cover. It doesn't feel like this was accidental. It feels like this is a cover. Again, I do want to emphasize here that this video is for entertainment, educational purposes only as well. But it feels like a cover. And it's being followed by the Tower card. And the Tower card is pretty significant in itself because the Tower card means a straight up attack. Now, we're asking about the spiritual aspect of it. And it's saying that, the spiritual aspect of Congress being attacked and being lit on fire and bombed or whatever, this just essentially means, in essence, that it will be in some way attacked. And it was before. It was under attack, and it looks like it's going to go again. I don't know if it's going to be the physical aspect of it this time, but might be more the spiritual aspect. But it could be both. Because if one is refused, what's it the spiritual aspect is refused by people in Congress, then it kicks into gear and it starts to manifest into the physical. Like, for example, the best way I could explain it, you ever like have problems and like, your throat starts to hurt a little bit? That's because like, when you go to the doctor and the doctor looks at your throat and says it's completely fine, there's nothing wrong, but it still really hurts. But then you get your chakra cleansed, you get your chakra opened up again, and you realize that, oh, it wasn't exactly an actual illness. It was just me having my chakras closed. That is the same aspect here. That is exactly what it's referring to. It's referring to the simple basis that when things are refused and not acknowledged, sometimes things in life can manifest in the physical aspect on your body. And that is how it's represented here. It's representing that there's going to be a warning, and the warning was clear as day was January the 6th. That was the warning. If they do not heed the warning, which doesn't look like they're gonna, it looks like they're going to undergo an actual attack. And here you have it, the Wheel of Fortune card. The Wheel of Fortune means backwards. It means the future goes back. This is what the Wheel of Fortune means. Look, the guy is not spinning forward. He's spinning backwards. is going counterclockwise. Why is that significant? Because it's significant because it's going back to the way things were in the past. Now, here's the thing. What happened under Donald Trump's first term? Donald Trump's first term at 45 was just a regular president. Donald Trump 47, he represents a shadow president. He represents a different entity, a different person altogether, spiritually speaking. But the Wheel of Fortune card means going back to what happened. What happened on two capitals? Well, we had the insurrection on the U.S. Capitol, and then we also had, back in 1814, we had a literal attack on the White House. So if that's any indication, it means that history is repeating. That's what the Wheel of Fortune card means. It means history is going to repeat. That's all that it means. And so we're going to couple this with some astrology aspect and why this is significant, especially in the year 2026, and why you should be paying attention because it might affect us all. All right. Okay. The burning of Washington, which included the destruction of the White House, occurred on August 24th, 1814. Although the conflict is known as the War of 1812, the actual burning of the Capitol took place 2 years into the war. From an astrology perspective, the events that evening were marked by the following celestial and planetary alignment. Astrological data for August 24th, 1814 is the sun in Virgo. The sun had just entered Virgo, a sign associated with order, meticulous, and infrastructure of a nation. Moon in Sagittarius or Capricorn. On the day of the burning, the moon moved from fiery Sagittarius into grounded Capricorn. Sagittarius is often linked to foreign invaders and expansion, while Capricorn governs the state, government buildings, and authority, the very thing targeted by the British. Mars in Leo, Mars, the planet of war and fire, was the bold and theatrical sign of Leo. This alignment is traditionally associated with dramatic display of power and the targeting of royal or executive residences like the White House. The providential storm. Astrologers and historians alike often point to the freak weather event that occurred the following day, August 25th. A massive storm, likely a hurricane or severe tornado, snuck Washington, D.C. The effect: the torrential rain extinguished the fire set by the British, preventing the total destruction of the city. The astrological significance: this sudden violent shift is often attributed to Uranus, the planet of sudden changes and storms, and Neptune, the planet of water and dissolution. This is important because Uranus and Neptune are now back into the center of America's birth chart again. The last time that happened was in 1864 or 1863, something like that, whenever the Civil War started. And then at the beginning of the U.S. birth chart, it is now back again. Anyway, at the time, Uranus was in Scorpio, a sign of intense transformation and destruction, while Neptune was in Sagittarius, reflecting the chaotic and far-reaching nature of the conflict. The key event detailed: August 24th, 1814. The lead figure, British Major General Robert Ross, led the forces. The outcome: the White House and Capitol were gutted by fire, but the structure were later rebuilt and occupied by 1817. Now let's ask a little bit more specifically, what is the historical astrology aspect to modern day? What is the historical significance of U.S. birth chart astrology today compared to 1812 and the burning of the White House in 1814? And then when also asked, I'm going to add in as well the January 6th insurrection and the January 6th insurrection 2021. So we're going to talk about three major events, the Capitol and the White House, and see what the historical significance is compared to today. In astrology, the birth chart of the United States served as a symbolic blueprint used to analyze the nation's character, recurring cycles, and major crises. Comparing the periods of 1812 to 1814 and the 2021 insurrection reveals an evolution from external survival to internal structural transformation. The historical context of the U.S. birth chart. Most modern astrologers utilize the Sibley chart, cast for July 4, 1776 at 5:10 p.m. in Philadelphia to represent the United States. In 1812 to 1814, during this era, astrology was primarily used in judicial or national contexts, often found in almanacs to predict the fate of nations and individual leaders. Today, contemporary okay, that just sounds like garbage. All right. The burn of the White House, 1814, versus January 6, 2021, while both events involved a breach of seat of government, the astrological and historical significance differ in source and intent. In the 1814 burning of Washington, the source of conflict, the British forces captured the capital during a declared war. The key planetary influence, Mars in Leo. The dramatized, quote, royal or executive destruction by fire. The astrological cycle occurred during the nation's childhood, defining its survival against foreign power. Whereas in the insurrection on January 6, 2021, the internal, which is the source of conflict, American citizens stormed the building during peacetime. The key planetary influence, Mars squares Uranus and Saturn, manifested as explosive, sudden, and rebellious energy against established structures. The astrology cycle occurred during the U.S. Pluto return, a rare 248-year cycle signaling deep structural transformation in the face of shadows. The significance of U.S. Pluto return between 2021 and 2024. The January 6th insurrection is historically unique because it coincided with the first ever Pluto return of the United States. 1814 significant, the nation was solidifying its independence. The destruction of the White House actually triggered a surge of nationalism that unified the states. The 2021 significant, unlike 1814, the 2021 event reflects deep internal division. Astrology, a Pluto return represents a death and rebirth of a nation's core power structure, demanding a reckoning with internal history rather than defense against foreign enemies. The evolution of planetary interpretation. Uranus, often linked to American wars, Uranus returns every 84 years, while the War of 1812 occurred before its first return. Its movement today is frequently cited in the context of rebellion and emancipation, cycle that mirrored the Civil War. In Neptune in 2021, Neptune was interpreted as the great illusionist, reflecting the misinformation and paranoia that fueled the insurrection, a psychological layer that was not a primary astrology focus during the 1814 conflicts. And what is the significance and importance of this for 2026 in the US? Particularly, February 17th and July 4th. And both are very significant. So like I said for you guys many before, if you want to leave the States, so leave the United States, the time to do so before July 4th. If you don't leave the United States, you're better off staying in the United States and be safe because things are about to get really bad around July 4th. In 2026, the United States reaches its semi-quintil centennial, 250-year anniversary, amid a period of profound astrology and historical transition. While 1814 was about a physical survival, and 2021 was about internal structural threat, 2026 is reviewed as a year of reconciliation and rebirth. February 17th, 2026. The Ring of Fire and Collective Reset. This date is marked as the annual solar eclipse in Aquarius. Historical echoes. Eclipses are often seen as, quote, wild cards that trigger major events. This eclipse occurs near the U.S. natal moon, representing the population. In 1814, the pivotal storm was the turning point in 2026. This eclipse served as a collective reset, intended to rewire the nation's sense of community and belonging. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction, just days later on February 20th, a rare alignment occurred at 0 degrees Aries, the very beginning of the zodiac. This is considered the threshold of a new era, where illusions An old illusion dissolved to make way for new tangible, new structure. July 4th, 2026, the 250th anniversary, the birthday and quote unquote the cradle. The U.S. celebrates its 250th year of independence on July 4th, 2026, with major national commemoration planned by America's 250th. The cradle alignment. Astrologers highlight a cradle formation in mid-July 2026, with Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto align at 4 degrees of their respective signs. This is exceptionally rare and stabilizing configuration. The healer in crisis. This alignment is predicted by some to represent a reversal of the crises that began in 2020, including the event of January the 6th. It suggests a rebirth, a return to innocence, focusing on healing the internal fractures that have defined the last several years. That's actually pretty positive. Comparison of major national milestone, the event burning of the White House in 1814. The astrology significant Mars in Leo exterior threat to the royal executive seat. The result, national unity and external focus. The January 6th insurrection, 2021. The U.S. Pluto return internal structure reckoning was led to depolarization, internal focus. The semi 250-year anniversary in the year 2026 represents Saturn Neptune cradle, transformation and rebirth. The result, structural redesign, focus, future focus. So no longer looking from externally, protecting ourselves from external forces. Then internally we went internal, started looking at each other internally, which was the depolarization in the US. And then the 250-year anniversary, which is July 4th of this year, is going to be looking to ahead, looking to the future. What is beyond? What is the possibility for the US going forward? So that is the information that we get. There's a lot of information there. I'm not going to go into all of it, but there's pretty much that. Will the White House and Congress be destroyed? We answered that question. Let's just ask literally yes or no. So Spirit Angels, tell me, will the White House be destroyed completely? Will the White House be destroyed? Like the physical structure no longer standing? Will the physical structure be standing? Okay, so we have the Five of Cups reversed. Really interesting. This doesn't mean a bad sign so far. What's the future? Ooh, okay. All right, so this is the Five of Cups reverse, and this is the Five of Pentacles reverse. Force out. Force out. Interesting. And we're asking about the White House. The structure of the White House changes forever. Okay, what about the U.S. Capitol? Well, the U.S. Capitol, the structure, the integrity, the foundation of the actual building itself, the physical foundation, will it still be erected and standing, or will it be destroyed and unusable? Will it be erected and standing, or will it be unusable? So there is a cross here, a challenge here. So it almost feels like the Capitol challenges the White House. I don't know if that means I know the Capitol, the check and balance on the White House, but it's a little weird that the Capitol will go after the White House, unless that's exactly what it means. I think that's exactly what it means. Because we have the White House here. And this is the Five of Cups reverse, followed by the Five of Pentacles reverse. It means force out. But it doesn't mean like the building is destroyed. It just means something is forced out of the White House. And it's being challenged by the Hierophant, the government, the institution, and it's followed by exposure in the future, which is the sun, rebellion. I think, and I'm just telling you now, it looks like, based off of what I'm getting, it's like there's a war between different forms of government, different institutions of government. We have the White House here, where we represent the executive branch, the head of state, whereas the legislative branch, which is the representative of all the districts across the United States, and they're at war with the White House. That's what it feels like. It feels like they're at war with the White House. And we have the Hierophant and the Sun. It means there's rebellion within the government in the future. There's a rebellion going on in the government in the future. It doesn't give me a time frame here. but there's a rebellion in the government. There's change coming in the White House, and it's going to be directly inflected by the Capitol. And I think that now makes a lot of sense because remember, we had people go into the insurrection, they went and they attacked the insurrection and they attacked the US Capitol. Now, if that's any symbolic, it means that there's an infiltration, there is a rebellion. That means the Capitol assumed the power of rebellion, whereas the White House assumed the power of the phoenix, the burning and falling to the ground and rebuilding up. What does that mean? It means that when you put the two together, you put the phoenix up against the rebellion. There's an energy here of fight, war, civil war. It means that it doesn't have to be a physical battle, but it could be a battle nonetheless, or one that it defined a generation of people. It defined the next form of government. And here you have the Three of Wands. And the Three of Wands is pretty significant in itself because it represents overseeing the governmental structure, the governmental institution. Here you have two wands not even touched, just overlooked. And here you have this guy just holding his hand on the furthest wand to the right of him. Why is this significant? It's significant because the U.S. government branches had about three wands, which means each branch, which means the Supreme Court, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and then the executive branch. But the fact is that the leader is only holding on to the executive branch and ignoring the judicial branch and the legislative branch, which means that there is a divide in government where there is a formation and threatening of power between the checks and balances, and the Congress is going to want to stand up. It's going to want to hold the president or the executive or the leader accountable. And it's being followed by the Emperor card. And the Emperor card is, guess what? The Emperor card comes in the Capital card. Right, the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol, the House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate. It means the emperor lies here. Why is that significant? Why is it important? It means that the power is not in the hands of the White House. The power and dynamics shift to the people's house. Because remember when I said earlier in the video when I opened up, I said you have to ask yourself for a moment, did the White House ever live up to its true potential? We the people, the people's house, which is the White House. Did it ever, at any point in time, ever live up to that potential? The answer is no. But the Capitol was represent the people in all districts, whether it lived up to that potential or not, was never founded on the intention of representing all people. Therefore, it lived up to that potential. And so the fact is that we have the Emperor card, the leadership position in the U.S. Capitol, which indicates to me a rebellion. It indicates the power of the legislature against the executive. In the future, the power of the legislature can become more powerful and override the power of the executive branch. The same way it did prior when the executive branch had less power during the Article of Confederation, the first governing document in the United States before the adoption of the U.S. Constitution. It's followed by the Justice card here, which is the Justice card means we're going to judge, we're going to make the rule, you don't have a say. This is the Justice card. This feels very much like there is a rebellion in the U.S. Congress that's going to will against a sitting president or a leader in the White House. I don't know exactly when this time frame is occurring, but it does look like more than anything, it looks like in some way there is some parallel to this type of event. And it's being amplified by the Three of Pentacles. It means throwing out the vote, throwing out the ballot. I do feel like there is going to be some sort of rejection, some sort of repudiation. So you're asking about the judicial aspect, the Justice card. It's going to occur at a time when the people, specifically politicians, try to get things passed, and it gets overturned. It gets put on stagnated. It doesn't move. It feels like in some way Congress is no longer a governing body. It's no longer effective. That is when Congress becomes a rebellious form of government. It rebelled against the White House. And here on top of the Three of Wands here, it's being amplified by the Queen of Pentacles, means washing the economy. Now remember, the U.S. Capitol controls the purse. It controls the economic powerhouse of the United States. So one of the ways that the U.S. Congress is going to try to put a lot of pressure on the executive branch with the president is going to be through the power of economics. There's going to be some sort of restriction in terms of money and the holding of money for the president. The president's going to struggle in terms of economic aspects. They're going to take and use the power of Congress to go against the sitting president. I don't know if that is occurring under a Democratic president or there's just some sort of rebellion within the U.S. government altogether. The bottom of that here, we have the Wheel of Fortune. Look to the past to understand how things played out. So it is saying that in some form in the U.S. government, in some capacity in U.S. history, this has happened before. It's just a repetition in the story. The top of the deck is we have here the the Four of Pentacles. This is indicating that this is going to occur when all four branches of the government become so isolated, so wanting to hold on to power that they're willing to throw the other under the bus. This means the judicial branch, the executive branch, the legislative branch, all forms of government in the U.S. is going to want to hold on to power and are not willing to let it go. That is when you start to see that rebellion start to take place. And here you have it, the devil. Bad intention. They don't want to let the power go. They want the system to be contained. They want the system to remain. Because as long as the system remains, they have something to benefit. They're afraid of not benefiting in the future. And I'm not really confident this rebellion is going to be in favor of the people, but it's going to be portrayed as such. And here you have it, the Page of Wands, which means a new leader on the horizon. That was interesting. Did not expect a reading about, a possibility of an attack or not a literal attack, but a policy attack on the White House by the Capitol. That's rather interesting. I'm going to see if I can get a time frame here. If you guys have any questions in regards to today's topic, by all means, drop them in the live chat. So Spirit Angel, tell me, is there a significant time frame for this? Okay, here's the White House. Okay, there's a president here. Here's the hangman. It's going to occur at the time when there's a white supremacist in the office. So that could be Trump. That could be Vance. Could be practically anybody. The bottom of the deck means the Fool card is on the horizon. It means that there is risk. So that means that there is risk here. And this is the what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 9 wand here. It means that there is risk in the wand. It means you can get possibly hurt. And that makes a lot of sense. It's speaking more in the literal aspect. The top of the deck is the incumbent. So the incumbent. So that means Trump. That's what this is referring to. It means the incumbent. It means in the moment. It means the person in power. This is going to happen under Trump or Trump administration, whether that is Donald Trump himself or what's it called, J.D. Vance. It's being coupled by the Knight of Pentacles. This means the money. Remember we talked about how Congress has the money. They're going to use that power of the money to hold the president and prevent him from going forward with certain things. This is the Knight of Pentacles. It means to stop. It means to stop, but it also means dark money. Because the money on publicly is not being funneled in to the White House, which is the leadership position, it means that they're going to resort to dark money to be able to get certain things done. That is what this seemed to be. And it seems like more than anything, this could be what's coming in the next couple of years. Now, we have the Five of Swords reversed. The Five of Swords reversed, normally when it's upright, it indicates walk away, knowing when your battle has been lost. This is continuous fighting. I have a feeling that when we start to head into, 2027, next year after the midterm, there's going to be a continuation of fighting. Here you have it, the Strength card. This is the Ten of Cups. And there is going to be a clear mandate for a political party, a clear mandate by the American people to the House of Representatives. So I do feel like this could be meaning two things. If the Republicans hypothetically do somehow take power in 2026 in the midterm, then that means that they, in some capacity, are going to rebel against the sitting president. However, if it's going to be a Democratic institution and a Democratic control of the House of Representatives, that means, or the Senate, it could be both, most likely they're going to be both if that was the case. That means that the Congress is going to go against the U.S. president, which is Donald Trump. And this is the strength card. It will be a mandate for the Democratic Party. And this will be the testament to see do they have the backbone, the spine to stand up to the Republican Party. And it's being followed by and amplified by the Ace of Swords. The Ace of Swords means to take out the incumbent, to force a removal of the king, to stab the sword through the throne of the king, and to remove him from power. It's reversed. It means no. It means no. But here's the thing. It's going to occur the Five of Cups is going to occur at a time in the White House when a sitting U.S. president, which is the emperor, which is an old figure, is sitting in the White House. Let's because the card came up for the White House before. The emperor is the white supremacist, the hanged man. That's the time frame here. That's the time frame. Now I want to ask the card: do the Democrats have the spine to force a removal? Let's see. Or will they be the one fighting? Because the fact is, you have the Ace of Swords reverse here. And we're asking about a time frame. And the Ace of Swords doesn't mean a removal. Spirit angels tell me, if somehow the Democrats win in 2026, will they remove the U.S. President Donald Trump from power? Will they remove Donald Trump from power? Okay, we have Native Americans here. Okay. Will the Democrats remove Donald Trump from the position of power if the Democrats gain control of the U.S. House of Representatives? Okay. Top of the deck is post-influenza pandemic, the roaring 20s. All right. What is the bottom of the deck? We have here Republicans win. Okay, interesting. In this scenario, Republicans win the House of Representatives. And we're asking about what happens if the Democrats win, though. Right? And here you have is when you guys see a lot of my cards, especially these specific cards, when the card is reversed, you flip it to the other side. It means climate change. It means movement. It means trend moving in a different direction. What are the challenges that's facing the mandate, which is the public mandate for the midterms, for the 2026 midterms, and really getting to the point where the capital goes against the executive branch, which is the White House. You have your climate change. The trend needs to change from its current trajectory. What does that mean? It means that the party in power in the next midterm, in the midterm that's coming up, is going to have a mandate, whether that's for the Republicans or for the Democrats. Now it needs a climate change. It needs something to initiate the Democrats to win. There's a lot of movement that's going to put a Republican in power, not a Democrat. There needs to be certain climate changes, which doesn't mean a physical climate change, but it means a change in direction, a change in trend. Here, that those changes reflect in women's rights. You know, I don't know if you noticed, if you watched my previous video, I just posted a video on the 17th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution and then wanted to repeal the 17th Amendment through a different act. And what they're currently trying to say is that, oh, people don't have the right to vote, and it should be decided for the legislature branch for selecting who's senator of a certain state. That is what they were saying. Now, here's the thing. If you haven't already saw, the House of Representatives passed the SAVE Act in the United States. Now, guess what? The SAVE Act only allows for certain people to have a passport, who have a driver's license, who have a government ID, and even a birth certificate. Now, here's the thing. Here's the kicker. If at any point you change your last name or you get married, and your name does not match your birth certificate anymore, guess what? You're now eligible to vote. So, again, women's rights faces the past. That is one of the challenges that's going to affect the Democratic Party. It is in the past, not in the future. We have here is landslide. Reagan win in 1984. It is reversed. However, we do have Republicans win the White House, which they already are. That is why it is facing the past, because they already won the White House. Now, here's the thing. We have high turnout. This midterm in 2026 is going to indicate a low turnout. Now, why? Well, that is going to be a very low turnout because of the circumstances that prevent people from having the capabilities and the means to go out and vote. But in no way, in any capacity, does it tell me whether or not a scenario where the Democrats win. And this is really where it's concerning. It's telling me that more than anything, as of right now, the trends are in favor of the Republican Party. And that has always been very much consistent across many of my videos for 2026, with the exception of 3 videos. Out of 9 videos has projected Republicans winning in 2026, compared to 3 videos indicating a Democrat victory. because it has to do with how and the techniques being used by the Republican Party to maintain power and control, whereas for the Democrats, they're not really doing much to conflict that. Maybe the California, maybe some other states were saying, oh, we're going to redistrict. But guess what? We're getting closer and closer and closer to the midterm, and it's going to become too late. And then here you have is on top of the White House, the president, the current president, Donald Trump, and the hangman, which represents the white supremacists, we have here FDR wins in 1936, landslide. Okay, so I guess I need to flip that card first. So I guess that makes a lot of sense in terms of this aspect. So there's two different ways that this can go. It can go the way that I said, the climate needs to change and shift in favor of the Democratic Party by forcing massive changes in the nation as a form of rebellion. The restriction of women's rights and women taking their rights for granted will now have to realize that their rights are in jeopardy in this aspect. Now, this is a scenario where Democrats win. Women now realize that their rights and their life has been taken for granted and they have to go out and fight for it. The Republicans are the incumbent party in power. Normally when the incumbent party, the incumbency factor for the party in power, normally loses seats at the next midterms. And here you have low turnout. There could be low turnout for the Republicans, could also be low turnout for women. Maybe possibly, and hear me out here for a moment, the Republicans maybe thought for a moment that women vote heavily for the Democratic Party, but maybe they didn't take into account the percentage of women per each voting block. So, for example, you take black women, who might only represent around 12 to 14% of the population, compared to 36% of women who are white and vote more conservative. And just say hypothetically in a scenario where you remove women's rights to vote, you now not only lost your vote, but you also lost your candidate. So who is up now and who is down? The Democrats rise above because they didn't have a lot of the vote share compared to the Republican Party. So that could be also what could be at play. And there's many factors that this can go. And then here you have it on top of the president, which is the current president of the United States, being in the White House, and the executive, is going to be a repudiation of the president. It's going to possibly usher in a massive win for Democrats. And that isn't one of the scenarios. That isn't one of the scenarios. And that could be why the Capitol has a massive mandate. We use the word mandate. Mandate doesn't mean a small narrow majority. It means you win the popular vote, and it means you win enough seats to be able to have a sizable super majority, which means that even if the Republicans try to filibuster, they don't have the majority to do so. They can pass any legislation, they can do whatever they need to do to force a change. And it's very possible in 2026, we could possibly see two widely extremes. It is really up for grabs here. The question that's at play for all of us is to know who is going to go out and vote. Are Latinos going to be afraid to vote? That's going to be the key indicator. Are women going to go out and vote? And how are they going to vote if they can vote? We're going to ask about like how are men voting? How is the national environment, the extremities? How far are the Republicans willing to go to rig elections? How far are willing to counteract that for the Democratic Party? There are many things that's at play here, so it can go either way. And that is why you see two alternate scenarios and how the midterm can go. And it can go any way. But either way, it's going to go to the extreme. It's not going to be very narrow. It's going to be very extreme. The question is that we ask is it going to be enough? Will it be enough to give the Senate to the Democrats with 60 votes? 60 votes. Which means that in order for them to remove Donald Trump, hypothetically speaking, in the Senate and convict him and remove him from power, would just require 7 Republican senators instead of 17 senators like in 2022, in 2021, when they were doing the second impeachment trial. So there are many ways that this can really play out. The question is that what scenario, what timeline are we entering? That's the question I would love to know. But unfortunately, the cards have never been very clear with that. Even when you look at my psychic channeling, it always tells me, and I'll tell you, it said the 2026 midterm will be fought with bears and dragons, but a rabbit will surprise us. And I'll have to do a video on that. But it says here the midterm will be fought with bears and dragons. A rabbit will win. A surprise, if you will. And you can see that it's dated. You can see that it's literally right here. You can see that it's there, and that is very, very significant. And the fact that this is all coming into play, and remember, everything we talked about in the video today so far, we talked about how dynamic and a polar play is is forming, for where the U.S. Congress is up against and rallying against the executive branch. And you probably ask yourself why. Why is that important? Why you keep talking about it? It's important because, just say hypothetically, there's a mandate for a political party in the U.S. Capitol. It's considered a rebellion, right? It's considered a rebellion. Donald Trump, if the Republicans lose the House of Representatives and the Senate, considered a rebellion to him. That could be why it could show up as a rebellion. It could show up as a rebellion because of the repudiation of Donald Trump policies by the American population. It could be many ways that this rebellion could be formulated. Now, people are hoping for the Democrats to really get their crap together and to actually go after the president. The question is that we asked is, will they have a spine? But also, when you look at all the things that we talked about so far, we talked about how they have the power of the pocketbook. They have the power to do this and to restrict the president. The leadership is within the Capitol, not in the White House, which tells me something in terms of power dynamics shift away from the White House into the House of Representatives. The ball shifts. The question is what happens now? Because it's out of the people's house and it's now in the people's representative chamber. What happens now? I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, peace out. I love you. Thanks for watching.